hate it without music.
That's okay. You're gonna be fine.
Welcome, everyone, to Rules of the Arena, episode 34. 35 now, I think. This episode is made possible by Blind Ninja Studios, where you can find this show and others such as Department of Fence, Homebrew Bound, Soundwave, and Legends of Lothos, and my new show called No Story Left Behind. We are also brought to you by Duck Hill Workshop, a small-scale sawmill, and builders of fine furniture. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram at Duck Hill Workshop, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can watch episodes of Workshop Wednesday. In studio with me this week is Casey. He's finally back from his mild case of death there they had.
That was a rough one. That was a rough one, tell you what.
Ben unfortunately can't be here. He's been at a 10-day timber framing class, so I think he's kind of gone radio silent on me this week. So I'm assuming he's gone into a slumber of some sort. More importantly, joining us is via Skype is Sabrina. I honestly don't know how to say her last name.
It's Reiswig. Just say Reiswig.
Reiswig. Josh from Amputee Blade Runners, who you can hear on episode 34. After we wrapped up the recording, I asked Josh if ABR works with other athletes who are in other sports. And Sabrina, you came up immediately. I knew, and after I watched the video of you pulling a truck on YouTube, it's like, I got to get you on the show. But you are...
it's funny because that video always gets me a lot of calls. I don't know what it is.
You're a wife, mother, an amputee, also an athlete, and you are one of the strongest disabled women in the world. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us this evening, and please just introduce yourself a little bit for the folks listening.
Yeah, sure. So as you said, my name is Sabrina Reiswig. I'm a military wife. I'm a mom to two beautiful girls. I am a competing strong woman. I coach kids with limb differences, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. I'm a world traveler. We love to travel as a family, and I'm kind of a foodie, but I should probably just say I just like to eat. And I'm an amputee. Notice I didn't throw that in first.
Right.
So just so that I can eat all the food and not gain all the weights, I run with Amputee Blade Runners, and I do strong women challenges / training. I strive like pretty much my whole life to be quote unquote normal. And then whenever I found that word was actually just a synonym for average, I stopped doing that. So, because I figured that didn't fit. And then I just want to do things, and I refuse to think that it's impossible. I'm always kind of like this MacGyver mind that tries to find a different way of being able to do it. Like if I light this matchbook on fire with a paper clip, it's going to work out. And yeah, that's pretty much my story. The end. Well, but it's not the end. We still have a whole podcast.
Right. Good night, folks. That's all we got.
Well, I got out of here early.
Right. How old were you when you found out that you're going to need to have your leg amputated, and what was the cause?
I was 8 when my parents found out that I had Ewing sarcoma. It was, I had just really, really bad pains in my legs, like extremely bad Charlie horses. And they would take me to the doctor. And of course, it never was hurting at that exact moment that I'm in at the doctor's. So I'm trying to describe this as an 8-year-old to a doctor, like what's going on. And they're like, oh, I think it's just growing pains. Oh, I think she's just trying to get out of school. Like, I really think she's figured this whole thing out. If she says she hurts, she can get out of class and go home. And so months had gone by, and then finally, like, it had gotten so bad, I had passed out in our kitchen in our new house. And my mom threatened my dad. She's like, you will go get an x-ray. If you do not get an x-ray, you are not coming home. And my dad's like, okay. So we went to the doctor's office. I got an x-ray, and yeah, it was just crazy to look at both of my legs and see that one looked fine, and then the other one looked like it was Swiss cheese. You can tell that something was really wrong. And they like that day slapped a cast on me, drew some blood, and then scheduled me for a biopsy. So, it went quick. They didn't know that it was cancer at the time. I mean, that's not for kids in the 80s. Like I'm old, like I got my gray hair going on. So, in the 80s, that was just not like the number one thing. Like, boom, cancer, kid cancer. So I remember sitting at like a Bob's Big Boy. If you're old like us, like you get what I'm talking about. But anyways, we were sitting around at a table at Bob's Big Boy, and my parents were like going through everything, like, oh, it might be this, and then you just have to take these pills, and or maybe it's this, and then you just have like a little bit of this that you'd have to do, or we do that, or like they were going through list and list and list and trying to diagnose it, and they again didn't say the C word, it wasn't in their mindset at that time. But yeah, I didn't really react as much because I didn't really understand what was going on, until my parents kind of had to sit me down and was like, hey, it's radiation and you lose your leg, or chemotherapy and you lose your leg. Which one would you like to do? And I was like, which one do I want to do? And so my parents kind of explained like what were the benefits and disadvantages, and we all kind of made a decision as a family, like since there was only two ways to go, like chemotherapy and amputation was just what's going to happen. And 2 years later, I was cancer free. So I mean, I have to call it a blessing, even though people think it's some sort of catastrophe, losing a limb. Like, it's horrible. Um, I'm dead. I can't do anything. I've lost a leg. But here we are. I'm going on 32 years of being an amputee, and I don't know. I guess I don't want to call myself normal. I'm far from normal, but I'm at least like living a quote unquote normal life per se, just making everything work and having fun and enjoying it and making sure that I make every moment count.
Did you or your parents have that kind of state of denial, if you will, when the doctor said cancer for the first time, or did they kind of take it in stride?
Well, it was kind of hard because my mom had already gone through something like this with like a childhood friend that had cancer whenever they were both cheerleaders in high school. And so it's like I think my mom instantaneously kind of like went that bad negative route, because she'd already witnessed it. But like, come on, this was the 80s. Like my survival rate was like 15%. Like there was just, even at that time, there were leaps and bounds in studying cancers, but not all of them were being studied and in length or in depth, I guess is what I should say. So even the medical journals at that time were like, this is a pretty much like a deadly cancer. So it was really hard. It hit my mom really hard. And understandably so. I'm the only child. So, it would have been, I think, extremely hard on both of my parents, not just my mom. My dad, I'm a lot like my dad. As much as, don't tell him I said that. He knows it, but don't tell him I said that. I'm admitting something that's wrong. Anyways, my dad kind of just, puts on his big boy, pants, and he gets to work. The man worked 3 jobs just to make sure that we made it from, day to day. And, with having to file bankruptcy on top of it, like this was hard times. They at some point had to debate whether or not they were going to be able to afford groceries or the medicine and the cleaning supplies for them to flush my Broviac catheter that I had. Like they had to debate this. And like this was really, really like a hard time for both of my parents, but man, they made it work. They figured it out. And I'm just really happy that, that in itself is a statistic that doesn't pan out very often, where your parents stay together and they work together and they come out on the other end having a child that's beat cancer. And so, yeah, it was hard, but I'm just very, very grateful that both of them are who they are.
And how did you react? What was going through your mind? Being 8 years old, I think I was 5, maybe 6 years old, and I lost family to cancer over the years, but it was the first time I watched somebody go through or heard of chemo. But I remember it didn't really sink into my head until I was probably in high school, and I kind of clicked back like, oh, those times that we were visiting grandma at the high school and she's sitting in this big comfy brown leather chair, that was chemo.
Yeah. My reaction was more along the lines of like, obviously, I didn't want to be in the hospital. Like, no one wants to be sick. No one wants to be in the hospital. Like, that's pretty given, right? So when it came down to it, it was feeling icky all the time. Like, chemotherapy does a number on you. Like, I would lose like 8 more limbs. Wait, I only have 3 left, but I would totally lose 8 more limbs than have chemotherapy ever again. And the reason is because chemotherapy like really like sucks the soul out of your body. And maybe not so much now, but back in the day, it really felt like that because I mean, I just wasn't me. I was sick all the time. I didn't feel like doing much. My taste buds were just jacked up. Like I could look at the color green and just throw up. I just I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to hang out with my friends, and I wanted to just enjoy being a child. And with that, it was trying to figure out how I could do that. And I have one of my little ones in here right now. Say hi. Okay. There's no way around this. I'm just gonna say. There's just no way. Hey, I gotta go. Bye. Love you. Bye. Love you. Bye. Out. Oh my gosh. So anyways, yeah, I mean, I think that it was just the good days where I could actually go outside and hang out with other kids. My white blood count had to always be taken into account, like in order for me to hang out with my friends. Like, what's your white blood count? Like, what other kid has to go through that?
Right.
And so, can you close my door, please? Because you're just gonna distract me, you crazy child. Out. Thank you. Out. And so, yeah, I mean, that was the hardest part, is just being denied the time to spend with friends. Being in the hospital wasn't any fun, especially when they like wake you up at 3 a.m. They're like, yeah, we got to take your blood. Yo, I was sleeping.
Right.
Like, what part of like, please don't draw blood in the middle of the night do you not understand? Like, can I just get some sleep here?
Or at least do it while I'm asleep.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, if you didn't wake me up and you just pulled blood, like, that would be so much easier. Like, I had a catheter. It's not that they couldn't do it.
Oh, I better be tied down out cold, because if I wake up to a needle near me, somebody's getting hurt.
The needle's already in you.
That
Gordon.
is when irrational fear Gordon comes out.
Yeah. And I really was. I hated needles. I just hated it. And of course, like, I was relentless. The first time they had to give me like an MRI or something like that. They had to put the dye in or a CAT scan. I can't remember, but they had to put the dye in my body. It took the physician doing the actual scan, 2 nurses, and my mom to hold me down. And I'm like, I'm 38 pounds. Okay. Like, I'm 38 pounds. It's taken 4 people to hold me down to get dye in my body in order for them to do the scan. And I mean, like, that was the type of kid I was. I was like, you're not gonna do this to me. So, yeah, it made life interesting for my parents, I'm sure. I made it so much easier for them.
Did your friends understand what was going on? I mean, what did they think or did you tell them that you were going to have your leg amputated, or that you had to go through chemo or anything like that? Where, again, being kids, did you really process with them?
I really feel like this is a great question for like this pivotal moment that happened. So here I am, I'm in the 2nd grade. This is whenever I get diagnosed with cancer. I had literally been in the 2nd grade for 2 days before they like took me out, put me in the hospital, and then I had to homeschool for the rest of the year. And then I started coming back during my 3rd grade year, and it wasn't all the time. And I was still kind of like in and out of class, and trying to keep up with everything was really hard. But the friend aspect of it, like, so here I was, I showed up for 2 days with a leg, I had all my body parts, and then in the 3rd grade I show up and I'm missing one. And Kellen Covington, man, like I always attribute this to Kellen. You know, she was a popular girl in 3rd grade, and I guess it just didn't bother her, or it was one of those things. I don't know if it was like she'd been around something like this before, or she just didn't care. She just wanted to be my friend no matter what. And whenever someone would say something bad, like, she'd be like, "Who are you? Like, she's fun." Well, we'd go hang from the monkey bars or go swing, or we'd do any of these things. And in 3rd grade, I mean, how important that is to have friends and to feel included was such a major part of my upbringing, like amongst my peers. I don't know. I mean, for the most part, it didn't really get hard with people until about my junior high years. That's like an awkward moment for everybody, especially like girls and boys trying to figure out how to like intermingle with each other and like hang out. And then you have to throw in like something like missing a limb, and that one was and like multiple elementary schools all kind of coming together. So here's people that have never known me before. And so that's kind of whenever it got a little bit harder. And then of course, whenever you get into high school, it's even more and more kids that you don't know. So my mom always calls it the tape recording. She's like, just rewind the tape, because everybody's going to ask you, what happened to your leg? And you kind of go, well, I had cancer when I was 8 years old, and now I have a prosthetic leg because I blah, 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 blah. And like, you just kind of like, you kind of go through it. My daughters have heard this story so many times that I don't have to say the story anymore to little kids that ask me about my legs. My daughters will chime in. She had cancer when she was 8 years old, and now she has a robot leg, and she has everything. And so I'm very happy that I now have 2 tape recorders instead of 1.
Well, was it difficult for you to adjust to having a prosthetic in the beginning?
It was. Out.
Yeah, Gordon, get out.
Yeah,
it'll be awesome. Like, this is called mom life. Like, there's never a moment that you ever have any bit of privacy. And I mean, like, I could be in the bathroom, like, doing a number 2, and my daughters would want to have a full-blown conversation with me. So just enjoy, people. It'll be interruptions all night. What was the question again? I can't even remember.
What was it difficult for you to transition? Moving around and just being a kid with a prosthetic?
No. For the most part, the answer is no. I really got to that point where I found very inventive ways to get around as a kid, and the process of learning to walk again, like, they really talk about it. Like, this is hard. This isn't the same as like your body. Your brain just kind of like, sends information down to the rest of your limbs that say, do this. And then your limbs do this. But whenever it came down to learning how to walk with a prosthesis, like, I really had to train to do it. And that's a totally different part of your brain, where you have to move a different part of your body, like your hip, in order to make your leg move how you want it to. So it was very interesting on that part. But I actually had a wooden leg when I was first an amputee, and a lot of people are like, really? Like, you really had a wooden leg? Yeah, I really did. Like, back in the day, like in the 80s, they weren't designing prosthetics for kids. Like, not really. So, I mean, like, my leg was made out of wood, some fiberglass, and like a rubber foot. And I had like hinges on the sides that like you would use for like a drawer. Okay. So, I mean, like, it was really inventive. I'm serious. Get out.
I saw the mom look. I'm like, oh, there's a kid in there.
But you know what? I have some really funny stories about some of the times that I had a wooden leg. During summer school. Like, I was running around on the sprinklers and getting wet. And as everybody in their adult life understands that wood and water doesn't mix because it eventually will rot. As an 8-year-old kid, I did not understand this concept. So here I am, I'm like running through the sprinklers, and like I would run and like the water was like inside my leg, and then I would run and then I would squirt out my knee, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is so funny. This is just so funny." And then one day I stepped out of like my babysitter's car, and like my leg like just went just snapped right off. I was like, "Oh, I don't know why you would do such a thing. This is so, what happened?" Like inside, it was like literally like mold and like rots, just wood rot inside. I'm like, yeah, I think I know what happened now. My bad. So
Cool.
no, I figured it out. Like I even had races on like my crutches and stuff whenever, if I didn't have my leg on. I wanted to be a kid so bad that I was gonna do whatever I could to make it happen.
And you said, as you got into junior high and high school, it got a little more difficult. It is difficult being a kid. Were
Yeah.
were you ever bullied because of of your the prosthetic leg, or because you had a wood leg? I imagine there'd be. I know if one of my friends had a wood leg, there'd be a lot of pirate jokes.
There'd be so many.
Yeah. Uh, I would say that like as I was getting into high school, obviously, well, not obviously, at that time, once I was finally getting bigger and I wasn't so small. I wasn't really having like wooden legs anymore. Thank you, Jesus. But then again, like I looked like I was Terminator, so occasionally like I would get called like Terminator or something like that. Like yeah, I mean kids are gonna bully. Like that's just what it is. And a good majority of the time is gonna be because they just don't understand, they don't get it. So I mean one of the things that I've always advocated for is like, look, if you can at least like have a specialist kind of come in and explain what has happened, at least it gives like a little bit more sympathy to like what has that person gone through in order for them to even be here. And so in the third grade, they actually did that for me. Someone came in, explained what cancer was. Like the kids got full blown science, a day of learning Sabrina's illness and why she's missing a leg, and that kind of set the standard, even in elementary school. So as those friends kind of followed me through life in through junior high and high school, like I had the same group. Most of them, new people were coming in, but for the most part, I mean, like those same kids followed me around. So if there was ever like any questions or comments, I mean, most of the time I could at least just know that they were answering it truthfully because they knew exactly what I had been through. There wasn't like, I don't know, like made up like shark stories or anything that I knew about. I'm sure they probably existed, and I think the hardest part though was in high school. Well, actually, it kind of came out like as I was coming through college. Because I mean, as a female, like you have such big image issues to begin with as a female. Like it's just hard. Growing up junior high, high school, early college years, like you just to figure out like what the opposite sex is into, or the same sex, whatever you're into. You're trying to figure that all out. And so my body image issues were really a struggle, because I mean, like I'd have guys that would be like, "Hey, can I get your phone number?" And be like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." I'd give them my phone number, and then they'd ask me like what had happened to my leg, and I'd tell them that I'm missing it from the knee down, and like I'd never get a phone call, or like I'd never see him again. And, those are like psychologically damaging, because you're like you have this whole like, well, you obviously wasn't worth. People are always going to tell you all that, but it still kind of hurts, regardless if you have a strong mentality or not. Like those moments are going to be hard. And I mean, I was getting it from the media too. It was really hard at that time. Is like, I was, rolling into Fullerton, going to college, and I'm listening to K Rock, and the disc jockey there on K Rock, a female disc jockey of all, was talking about how like she saw this girl with only one leg at like a spa, and how gross that is, and no one wants to see that. And that became one of those moments that I actually saw myself really getting angry. And it wasn't because, I mean, yes, it affected me, but I was like, there has to be other amputees that are listening to this stupid radio show. And why would you say something like that? Like, you are creating such damaging mentalities. Like, you have to stop. And just growing up, learning how to interact with society image wise was by far the biggest battle of losing my leg younger. Like, I always say, like, I'm kind of glad I lost it then and not now, because this is a whole different battle. Like, you lose it at my age now, like I'm gonna be 40 in a couple, so many months. You start to understand, like, if you've had your limbs your entire life, to lose them now would be hard. That would be a hard transition, and that's a psychologically damaging transition in its own right, like its own battle. Some people walk through the flames and are like, legs, we don't need no stinking legs. And then there's other people that are like, oh, my life is ruined and I can never do anything ever again. So, I mean, we all kind of come to those crossroads that we have to make those decisions on what we're going to do. But again, I'm just really, really fortunate that I grew up with the same group of kids that knew me, like me, Sabrina, not just like, hey, yeah, that one-legged girl that walks around campus with yellow highlighted hair and stuff. Like, yeah, that one-legged girl. I guess the benefits too of like being an athlete was so helpful to the cause. I was on the wrestling team, and I was also a softball player through this entire time. And so just showing them, like, look, I don't need your sympathy. I don't need you to treat me like I'm some disabled kid. Like, I'm fine. I'm going to go play these sports and just watch me. That was always kind of been my motto. It's like, I don't need you to treat me differently because I'm missing a limb. Like, I'm still going to be the same person. And I again, that need to be with my community and my friends and play sports was so important that I was going to figure it out no matter what it took.
Did you have that aha moment when you decided that you're not going to let this define you, I guess, if you will say? Excuse me. Whether it be in high school or at whatever point that I don't know, can't think of the way I want to word this question now.
I have no idea where you're going.
Yeah.
I got you. I got you. Okay, so let me see.
It's been a long weekend.
There's no one moment. Like, there's never going to be that one moment, because this is not, I mean, like, each transition in life, you have to go through your ups and downs to get you back to that mentality of like, yeah, why am I caring about what so-and-so thinks of me? You do care, but and you're gonna do dumb stuff to like impress people. Like, I've done that. I don't know. Are we on like 1,563 times that I've tried to impress somebody by doing something dumb? I've done that. And again, it's that need to feel part of something. But then you start to realize you're like, wow, I'm doing some really, really dumb stuff. Maybe it means I shouldn't really care what they think, and I should just be doing my own thing. And so those aha moments, like I said, kind of fall in there occasionally when you're in the midst of doing dumb crap that you're like, wow, maybe I should just not do this. And then, you move on to the next transition. And the irony of it all is that when you just start being you, and I mean, like, I also have a very, very strong faith. Like, I should only care what God thinks of me, not what other people think of me. And I'm there now. I haven't always been there, but like, I'm there now. When you don't care what other people think, that's when they like you. It's so funny. And I go, wow, this is like the worst kind of irony, is that the more and more you try and impress people, the more that they're like, yeah, I don't care about you. So I just kind of do my own thing and whatever works.
To back it up a little bit, I mean, was it difficult for you? Or you talked about your having a wood leg and you didn't know that water can rot out wood and it broke. Was it tough for you afterwards to, then having, I'm assuming they went back to a wood leg at that time to replace it. Was
Yeah.
it hard for you to be responsible and take care of that? And was it stressful for your parents to make sure that you were taking care of it?
I don't even really remember like how that all went down afterwards. But I just remember my mom just kind of like, look, I don't care what you do, go be a kid. And that right there was huge for me because my mom was at least accepting of like, look, she has to be a kid. And if you deny her being a kid, like that's really hard. And my mom's been my biggest advocate to try and make sure I always got the right technology. But it also came down to my prosthetists. Like my prosthetists were like, it happens,
Well, make sure the next one's green treated. It'll be
Right.
fine.
Yeah, exactly. Get that yellow wood next time.
Right.
But it takes a really strong community, a strong support group to kind of give you those grace moments that you really, really need as you're trying to learn how to just fit in and how to work through life. And again, that comes in ebbs and flows as well. And I mean, that's why I'm with Amputee Blade Runners. I just so happen to, be like my nerdy self. I'm secretly nerdy. Secretly, don't tell anybody. But I geek out on like researching things, and so here I am. I'm researching prosthetists in and around Nashville because I knew I'd gone like 7 years on doing my own prosthetic work. I thought it was maybe time I go see a professional, maybe. So I started researching prosthetists in Nashville, and I came across Aaron, and Aaron Fitzsimmons is a prosthetist with Amputee Blade Runners. He and Ryan Fan had started the organization. We kind of covered that in the last episode with Josh. And I'd show up, and I'm like really skeptical because I didn't know if he was going to be this one and done type of like, all right, I'll slap a leg on you and send you out, the door, enjoy, make it work, type of person. Because there's a lot of prosthetists that are out there. They're one and done. Like they fit you, they put it on you, and they're like, see you in 3 years. Whenever insurance pays for it, we'll see you back here. And that's really hard because, especially as my body was changing. I just had my second child, and I'm like 30 pounds overweight from what I was, beforehand. And I just told him, I said, look, I'm a very, very highly active person. I love cycling. I love biking. I love doing all of these things with my family. It's important for me to keep up with my girls. And he was like, well, what do you think about running? And I said, well, I don't. I really don't. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, we have this organization called Amputee Blade Runners. If you wanted to, you could apply and we could get you a running blade. Here I am 29 years being an amputee, and I had never had the opportunity to have a running blade. And just having that mention, like, really? Like I could get a running blade? Like, really? And finally being able to test one out and start running on it, it was just such a pivotal change to my lifestyle, being able to keep up with everything. Because I was running, but I wasn't running very well because I was running on like what we called a brick, pretty much. It was a cinder block. And I'm trying to make this work, and I'm doing CrossFit at this time. And, I'm really trying to get back into fitness because I knew I needed to. But I kind of like made things work. But then whenever I got this running blade and I'm running on a running blade instead of running on a cinder block, I'm like, wow, where has this been my whole life? This would have been nice. But, again, you have to count it as a blessing at the time that you get something like that and not waste it. I didn't want to waste it. So, this is my 3rd year running Ragnar with Amputee Blade Runners, and I couldn't be happier. I still am not a fan of running. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Aaron, but I do it as a necessary evil because, it's part of fitness. being able to run with my kids and being able to be part of a community again. Here I am. Community is huge, 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 huge part of my life. Being part of a group, like Amputee Blade Runners, we're an all amputee running team that runs a 200-mile relay, and we kick butt doing it. And if anything, it's again just showing people, like, please don't treat us like we're invalids. Like, we're out here, we're doing our thing too, just like you guys are. We're running for cause because we want more running blades for these kids and adults that want to be healthy or healthier, and just have the ability with technology to be able to go out and do some of these things that insurance would be like, what, you want to run? We don't have to make you run. You walk and we're good. And you kind of go, all right, like there's not much you can do. So
I feel like insurance should be more like on top of the running thing, because if you're running, then they have to pay out less in the long run. Like, it seems very short-sighted that they'd be like, no.
Unless you're
fine.
running down a steep hill on gravel post-rain.
Healthier would actually mean they would have to pay less. This is so interesting. Like, it seems like a no-brainer. Be like, let me see here. If I have healthier people, I don't have to pay as much money for their health bills. But no, we don't want to pay for a running blade because that's too expensive. Like,
that's crazy talk.
You know what's expensive? Diabetes and like health issues with your heart. Those are expensive.
Or high school and playing rugby and into college. And I had my doctor, her husband also played rugby for a rival team. And so every time I came in there limping or holding my arm in a sling, she's like, oh, Jesus Christ, what'd you do this time? And I can almost hear my insurance company cringe on the other side.
You shouldn't get insurance when you're a rugby player. Like,
I still have my parents then. There's a reason why I don't play anymore. How much of a big a change have you seen in the technology in the last 30 or so years, especially joining or hooking up with ABR?
Oh my gosh, it's been extravagant. Like I said, coming out with a wooden leg right off the bat whenever yeah, go up from there. Like, you just go up from there. And I mean, titanium alloys, carbon graphite, computerized knees were coming out, even whenever I was, a teenager. So, I mean, leaps and bounds, all the time, leaps and bounds. And, I'm a firm believer that we should be researching everything that we can to like make mobility better. But when I say like mobility better, I mean like better for the body, not easier for the patient. And I think that that's one of those things where sometimes technology kind of goes above and beyond the call of duty. Like, I grew up as an amputee, so that's obviously going to put me in a kind of a different category than someone who's just losing their limb now. But I don't need something to move my leg for me, and it also has to do with how much limb I have left. And there's some people that have a lot higher amputations. So what I'm about to say is not a one size fits all for everybody. So don't be text messaging me and all that fun stuff later, giving me smack. Okay, I'm saying this works for most, not all. If you aren't working out like all of your body, and that includes what we call our stump or our residual limb, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage for later. Like, boom, just end of story. I don't care how much limb you have or how little you have. You have to be working out your entire body because it is something that is a part of how you are mobile and ambulate. Like, you have to use it. When we have things like computerized knees that are working legs for individuals instead of them actually building muscle to do it themselves, we're putting those amputees at a disadvantage. So I'm again firm believer. I love technology, love technology until it like becomes so convenient that people all of a sudden get lazy And then I'm like, yeah, don't do that. That's bad. My thing is that give me something that is, one, not going to break. Boom. I love when things don't break. Two, something that's going to actually be lightweight enough that it's going to be enjoyable to use it and not painful to use it. Don't make it painful for me. Like, and if you're slapping a 5-pound foot on me, like, one, that's just ridiculous. Two, it's not going to do anything for me that I really need it to do. Like, give me the products that I would like to make sure that, like, I've ripped through knees being as active as I have. I've like blown them up, and I've had prosthetists that were like, I've never seen this happen before. Like, yay! There's always a first time.
Right.
So we just kind of like kept saying, like, look, this is not the one that's gonna work for her. Just saying, not gonna work. So you walk out of the ball and you're covered with hydraulic fluid because you just blew up your knee. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm just saying. So again, just glad for the technology and the people willing to try new things and create new things, like using their MacGyver brains to invent things that work. And Aaron has been kind of a key component with that too, is just helping design certain things. And I really feel like we need to kind of bend towards that mentality of, it's not about me going to a prosthetist and them slapping a leg on and sending me out the door and see you in 3 years. We need to move towards the, okay, let's slap a leg on you, but if it doesn't work, come back and see me. We'll redo it if we need to. Like, we want to make sure you have something that is working for you, but we're also going to show you how to do certain things so that you're not having to come see me all the time for a minor thing. And that education and that community and the parents getting involved and the kids building their own legs, like, how cool is that? Like, these kids get to say, I built this. And I just think that's a better community, a better response to everything that's going on. And especially whenever you learn about the technology that's available out there, there's still so many people that are out in the dark that just don't know what is available and what is something that they would be capable to do if they had said technology. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, you start off with a wooden leg, you're going up from there. It's gonna be better.
You said you've like blown out the knee and such. Did that start with when you got into strongwoman, or was that before? You mentioned you're doing CrossFit and such.
Yeah, I think it was just mostly just with using it so frequently because I was running on it. I was burning up the hydraulic fluid, and then like it would all of a sudden just explode everywhere. And then finally, from like the third knee, we had sent 2 of them back and had to get refurbished and everything. They were like, just switch out the knee, just give her something else. This is just not capable of handling her. So they ended up giving me one that like could breathe a little bit better, and I still had the hydraulics and stuff like that on it. But like I turned them all down. Like I just need something that's free swinging. I can make this work on my own. So don't worry. Like I got this. Just slap a hinge on me. I've made it work in the past. So.
And speaking of strongwoman, when did you start looking at competing in that, and why did you try to go that or choose to go that route versus other sports that aren't like you said in the video, the Nat Geo video? People in strongman are mental, and you kind of have to be. It's a special kind of crazy that goes, I want to pick up 300-pound weights and carry them for a few hundred feet.
Yeah.
Should I tell you that I did it on a dare? 'Cause I kind of did it on a dare. So my friend John Stitt, who actually I'd heard about him after I was doing CrossFit, and Aaron had told me about it. About John, whenever I'd gone into the office, like, yeah, there's this guy, that's one of my clients that does strongman or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, totally, like, was like, oh, that's awesome. And then, like, just dismissed it. And so it's like, I came into church one day and he looks down at my foot and he's like, cool foot. And I go, yeah. And I look at his foot and it's like, oh, we have the same foot. This is so cool. He's like, hi, I'm John. And I said, hi, I'm Sabrina. He's like, I'm guessing we both go to the same process. Like we're part of a club now, you know, like this, like, hey, we have the same foot. We're part of this club. And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, wait. Are you the guy that like lifts weights and stuff like that? Are you strongman? And he's like, yeah, that's me. And so we kind of became buddies. And he, out of the blue, was like, look, we have no females competing in disabled strongman. We need females. And I know you lift weights right now, and I think you can handle this. And I said, what do you mean? You think I can handle what? So he starts kind of like going through with, Chris Faccio has been a leader for disabled strongman. And I mean, we say the term lightly. I mean, I think John's like trying to make it into like something like strong sports for people who can't walk good or something like that. I don't know what he's trying to do. But anyways, Chris Faccio is here. And they're both trying to tell me like all of the events for this America's Strongest. They're like, yeah, you just gotta like, these like 200-pound sandbags from one, spot to another, and then you're gonna pull this car, and then you gotta like do a biking cross.
Easy peasy.
They're like running down, and then there's this, Hercules hold that you gotta do. I'm like, half of this stuff I didn't even know what they were talking about. All I know is that I had watched Strongman growing up, and I was like, that's really cool. Like these huge muscular guys doing these, really fun events. And I was like, this is just weird, but it's so cool. And I said, John, I like maybe weigh a $130 right now. Like, I don't know if I can do all this. He's like, oh, I think you should be fine. And I was like, okay, well, I can give it a shot. How long do I have to train? About 2 months.
Jesus.
So here I go, like the next day I start trying, and of course you can't ever say it like I'm practicing these events, or you get like reamed from every strong person. So, they're like, practicing. You don't practice, you train. And I go, okay, sorry. But I mean, like mentally I had to prepare for it, because I was like, I gotta see what I'm capable of. But that was the best part about it, is that like just noticing that I was capable of doing things that I never knew I was capable of doing, and just pushing the boundaries. And so it's like, here I was freaking out. I think, I'm in my Bible study and I'm crying. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this strongman competition. I'm freaking out. And everybody's kind of like praying. I'm like, I just don't know if I can do it. And I show up to this competition, like I'm totally overwhelmed and I don't know what's going to happen. And here's the 5 events. And, the first event, like I think I might've gotten 1 point. And I was like, oh, this is a great start to this. This is awesome. And, my competition, who's Amber Stofel, she actually was competing against me in America's the first time around, which I had talked her into doing it. She did it on a dare. So here we are competing against each other. And then like we'd known each other from Crossroads Adaptive Alliance before, because we were competing against each other. Well, not against each other, because we have an upper and lower division in Crossroads, but we were at the same competitions for CrossFit. So I was like, yeah, if I can do it, you can do it. And she's like busts out like 12. And I did 1. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. So, tit for tat, really, like all of the events were kind of, they would either be good for upper body or lower body, limb differences. And so here we come down to the 5th event and we're tied. Like we're neck and neck on our scoring. So it's really going to take this carpool in order for us to deem the winner. And so I think I beat her by like 1 second on this carpool. It was super neck and neck. And I mean, she's such a strong competitor. And, it just, walking away with a belt, my first strongman was very eye-opening. Like I definitely felt that I had more capabilities in my body than my mind could fathom. but it also was one of those things where I sat there and I was like, all right, so what's next? And how do you top that? Like, how do you sit there and you go, okay, well, I've already done this. So now what? You know, and you don't say like, I'm going to Disneyland. You go like, no, like really, what are we going to do next time? And so I competed in able-bodied strongman and at Strasbourg in Illinois, and then again at Ragnarok in Oceanside, California, and then like went on to go compete in 2017 at World's Strongest in London and took second. And you know, and amazingly enough, Amber had turned around and took first in Worlds. So here I was, America's Strongest, she was World's Strongest, and we were, I mean, like it was like all was right in the world again. So we're still friends. We're still friends. We didn't kill each other. But that's the cool thing. That's the one thing I like about strongman more than I like about anything else, is that there's a lot of cheering each other on that you don't get from other sports. Like you don't cheer on the other baseball team whenever you're trying to beat them. Like that's just not how those types of sports happen. But whenever it comes down to strongman, it's a total like craziness about the sport, is that you're willing to watch other competitors and cheer them on, even if it means that they beat you. Like you want them to do their best because you love watching it and you love watching people succeed. And that's just a totally different dynamic to this sport compared to anything else. So,
and that's what kind of shocked me the most when I went to my first competition, is the camaraderie and how much coaching, because I was in the novice division, but you know, and I for the guys in the heavyweight class, I swear I need a bell around my neck so they didn't step on me. But they're sitting there like, oh, here's a different way to grip this or do the other thing, and you can get just a couple more inches out of, you know, the endurance, like the Conan's wheel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hired a coach because I was the same way. I was seeing strongman on TV, and there's these guys lifting up boulders the size of me. It's like, what the hell is this nonsense? And years later, I just got bored and happened to find a coach and work with them. Did you do the same, or did you go the self-taught route?
You know what? I definitely thought that there is a huge benefit to hiring a coach, and especially whenever they're a professional strongman. There was so much I didn't know about strongman that it was just not going to be something that I could do on my own. It was like I didn't know what I didn't know. So I went through LIFA for a while for some of my competitions, and she's just wonderful. She's really easy to work with unicorn strength, and I just really loved having programming that I didn't have to think about. Like, how amazing is it that like a sheet shows up in your email and you go, okay. And you like, you go on with like your 8-week programming and you're like, I don't have to think about any of this. I just have to write down numbers. It's like a beautiful thing. And you know, to watch your numbers grow through programming is again, just those milestones that you don't realize how far you've come until you can look back and be like, wow, I was only lifting that at the beginning of this 8 weeks. And now here I am. I think at my peak for one of my first trainings, I was back squatting like 330 pounds. And for someone on one leg, that's a lot. And Leafa's like, are you serious? And I'm sending her videos. Like I knew exactly, I was like, I know what's going to come down. It's like, someone's going to be like, yeah, you're not doing that. But here I am, like, as irony would have it, my powerhouse are my legs, not my arms. And so I'm doing crazy builds on being able to squat. Whereas at like my upper body strength, I'm like, I'm still struggling at 110. It was rough. It was really rough. But just super supportive. I'm actually doing a uncaged training program with Jamie Pop Christensen right now, and she's just another powerhouse. That comes out of Strong Women. That she's put on Ragnarok. I've competed at 2 of her shows, and they're just beautiful people. They're there to share their knowledge. And how wonderful is that, is to sit there and be like, this is what I learned. Don't do these things. do these things, save time, save money. And you kind of go, all right, thanks. And again, you know, that program shows up in your email and you don't have to think. I mean, my husband's gone all the time, you know, like I'm a military spouse. My husband's been gone almost 2 years in Korea. I have 2 little girls that I've been raising kind of on my own most of the time. You know, I've had support throughout, like whether it be friends on military bases or family or what have you. But, you know, like to program my own stuff at that point, I was like, yeah, I can't. I was like, yeah, I can't adult right now. No, I can't. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely think that if you're coming in and you're new, you don't have to hire someone who's on the pro circuit, but I mean, if it's something that you really are looking to do, you know, find someone who's good at programming stuff. Like, you know, my buddy John programs a lot for himself, and you know, I've also gone through, not necessarily through programming, but I mean, Derek Stone allowed me to work out in his gym for gosh, that full year of me trying to get ready for the next America's Strongest. And you know, I again, you know, still battle with self-confidence and my abilities of what I can do, and constantly trying new things and trying to build muscle. But at the same time, you know, I know that if I ever have a question or I know, like, look, I'm plateauing on this. What's going on? They're always there for the good advice and the pep talks, especially whenever I'm like, I'm so tired of doing this. I can't spend 5 more days in the gym. Because by the end of your 8-week programming, like you are like ready to just sit on the couch for a little while. And it's good for you to do that. And you have to have breaks. Your body needs breaks too. But
it's week 7 and 8 my program, that because I have a few different programs I'd kind of jump around with and we'll use as skeletons now, but it's by week 7, week 8. It's like, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah, I was like, why did I think this was a good idea? Who talked me into this? No, yeah. But in the scheme of it all, the one thing that keeps me going is who I am character-wise when I've had my workout or am training for something. Like I have to be working towards a goal. I would love to say I'm self-motivated, but like I'm really more motivated at like setting a goal by like signing up for something crazy and then going like, okay, now what? Getting the training in that I need to in order to not look like a fool when I show up. But just I'm a much better person when I've had that energy release in the gym. I'm a better mom to my kids, you know, I don't yell at them as much, which is good. You know? And I tend to be a better community member and I tend to be a better wife. At least I hope my husband would say that. I think he would. But yeah, I love the Sabrina that comes out of the gym versus the Sabrina that doesn't go to the gym. And that's just what keeps me motivated on continuing to do this. I mean, I feel better. I'm strong, I'm healthy, I have more confidence in myself and my abilities. I'm a very humble person. Wow. Like I really feel that I do have a lot of capabilities, which I don't think that confidence is a bad thing at all. Like I really, really don't. But at the same time, you know, being able to come out of it and know what works for you and physical fitness period. Like you can be swimming, playing golf, both you do you, but do something because you know, you don't use it, you lose it, and that's just how muscles work. And so I always try and promote that. And again, you know, I love that this has kind of been like the catalyst for me being invited on things like this, but also being invited to coach limb different kids. I mean, that has been a huge part of my heart, and just being able to give back to kids that are going through some of the same challenges that I went through whenever I was growing up. And I mean, it's not like I had social media back in the day, back in the 80s, man. We were barely getting into like AOL and what is it, the
The IRC
IBC chat or
chats and
whatever it is.
Yeah, and
But
I saw
I
the
couldn't find anybody that looked like me. Now these kids have the capabilities of finding coaches that look like them.
and I saw you sent me the article, and I also saw it going through a few different forums that I follow of you're coaching a kid doing a box jump, and you know I don't jump unless I absolutely have to, but was he born with, or was it an amputation? He doesn't have, both of his arms are gone, and
Yeah,
the
Tim Bannon lost both of his arms, or well, he was born with no arms, is what I should say. His mom is actually also born with no arms. So Tim had been coming to that camp for years, and this was our last 35 seconds with him, just so you know. And me yelling at him was all part of the process.
it's very
It all worked.
motivating.
We just we're not going to pat people on the back at Camp Navability. So this all happened at Camp Navability, which is in DuQuoin, Illinois, and it's not a camp that's like, oh, you showed up, little Timmy, here's a medal. Like, we just don't do that. We train our athletes, because all of our kids are athletes that are going to go back into their able-bodied world, and they're going to have to compete with other kids who have all their limbs. So we want to make sure that they are at that performance level that they can show up and they can show people what they're capable of, not just talk a good game. And it is that moment whenever Tim jumps on that box that you can tell that it was important for him to show everybody, like, look, he had come in the very, very beginning, talking about bullying and talking about kids treating him badly at school. And like, I know exactly what you're going through. Like, I know exactly what you're going through. And so for me, it was important for him to get pushed so that he could see what he was capable of. Because it's all up here, right? Like, we're all up here all the time. We're always thinking like, I can't, oh, I couldn't do that. Oh, that's too hard. Like we all are like that. We're so much in our head. And Tim, our first workout that we had programmed had box jumps in it. I was like, literally, like, this kid should be able to do box jumps, no problem. Not understanding completely what it would be like to fall without arms. I do admit that. He's like, yeah, I don't think I can do box jumps like that. So we started him off on like something small and like just gradually built up. And I mean, like, he was getting higher and higher and higher. I don't know if you can see in the video, but he jumped like at least 2 to 3 inches above that box. It was just so thrilling for him to accomplish that, because again, he had so many doubts in his mind. He would look down at the box and like, it's like looking down into a canyon and being afraid of heights. So, yeah, we're going to push our kids. Yeah, sometimes that means we yell at them, but in love. We do it all in love. And, we give them hugs at the end, because we know, like, it's hard to get out of your head and do what you need to do. But yeah, we love that video. We are super surprised that it went as viral as it did. And I mean, Brad Vineyard, he's the head strength and conditioning coach, that he kind of like, he posted that video, and man, it just but we're glad that it happened, and it's because camps like Navability need eyes on it, because what we do for these kids is, again, creating community, creating a moment where they have that little bit of confidence to like light the fire. So again, I'm glad that it did. I'm also glad that like my face isn't in the video, like where like all of a sudden I have like all of these random people that are like, I saw you on this video. But amazingly enough, even with my back to the camera, I still had some people that are like, is this you? Is this you? I know this is you. I know this is you. This has to be you. I'm like, yes, it's me.
So how do you balance?
I'm glad to be there.
How do you balance your workout schedule, life, and you're traveling, you're working with this camp, and finding time to be with your family and everything else that life likes to throw at us?
I think it's called a calendar. Sometimes I write things down in
I've heard of those. I've never actually seen one.
But the best part about it is like you can write everything down in your calendar, but looking at it's probably the best part about it is whenever you can actually like remember to look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I got that one thing coming up. I just trying to be as organized as possible. I've definitely been in a season of struggle just because we're going through transitions all the time as a military family because we're moving around. And so in new environments and new schedules and new this and new that, sometimes it is hard to balance it all. And it is a lot. But I get up at 4:15 a.m. I get my workout in first thing in the morning, get it done. Then I don't have to figure out where I figure that into my schedule the rest of the day. It's just I'm in, I work my butt off, I come home, I drink my coffee, and then I continue on with my day, and I'm that's been a key component to being successful is doing that first so that I don't have to figure out where I get a workout in around the rest of my life. And I'm secretly a Navy SEAL, and it's because I get up that early in the morning. I read an article one time that's like, yeah, Navy SEALs get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to work out. And I was like, wow, maybe I'm secretly a Navy SEAL.
There's a former SEAL.
I'm not, you quote me on that.
What's his name? Jocko something or another. Every morning he takes a picture of his watch and it says 4:30 a.m. and it's like clockwork. And even on the weekends, like, I mean, the gym will be there at 6, right?
And it will. It totally will. I mean, it's whatever works for everybody's schedule. But, with having 2 little girls, like, it is the most crazy life that you can ever have is having kids that you just, like, randomly, all of a sudden, one of them is sick. Or one of them A, B, or C, just pick a situation, or, my oldest struggles with math. And so we're sitting here doing homeschool for an extra hour, trying to figure out like the tens place, the ones place, and the hundredth place. Like, okay, like this is things that you don't really think about until all of a sudden you're in there and you're like, wow, this is not what I planned for today. But, I just try and get what I can done when I can get it done. And again, just kind of keeping a calendar, keeping a to-do list to the best of my ability. And I get done what I get done. Tomorrow is a new day and I can just switch those little ones that I didn't get done onto the next list and, carry on with life. I'm not going to beat myself up about not getting everything done. I just can't.
And for anyone listening who has had an amputation, or perhaps they might be looking at a surgical amputation, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, probably the best advice that I can tell anybody who's either a new amputee or about to become an amputee is, you're currently going through the fear of the unknown. Like, you don't know what it's going to be like. And it's like the same thing as like whenever you woke up or you slept the night before you started high school. Like, you have no idea what it's going to be like. So there's fears, there's doubts, there's just all these preconceived notions of what life is going to be like. But until you actually step foot, pun totally intended, step foot into that new situation, you really don't know what it's going to be like. So you have to give yourself some grace to understand that, like, you will figure it out. You will, but you have to want to figure it out, and you have to want to do all of these things, to be the same athlete that you were, to ride your motorcycle again, to walk, run, swim, do whatever. The motivation has to be there. So there's just, I always call it the trifecta. The way I can keep mentally sane is that I have 3 things in my life. 1, I have community. Always have community. You always have to have people around you that are going to be willing to just spend time with you. Like, it doesn't even have to be pep talks all the time. Just sometimes it's just coffee and like shoot the crap. Two, you need to physically take care of yourself. Like, always have something that nature hikes, walks, swim aerobics. I don't care what you choose, do something. Okay. And then really just having something that's beyond you. And it's just a form of spirituality. Like, okay, so I picked Christianity. That doesn't have to be you, but it has to be something that's beyond you. And that can be where you find, like, helping others. And sometimes that's just what you need to kind of feel like that sanity about you. Going through being an amputee or getting an amputation, like, mental than there is the physical. The physical can be hard, but the mental's 10 times worse unless you can battle that. And I think that as long as you can kind of find your own balance and do what you can do, like, there's always that meme. It's like, why do you run? Because I can. And it's so true. It's like, why do you do this? It's because I can do this. There's people out there, and I'm not going to try to say like they have it worse, because I don't feel that way, but there are people that wish that they could do certain things. And, I just feel like what a waste for us to not use everything that we have and be able to just come out, shining at the other end, because I mean, everybody has it in them, but don't give up the first week, the first month, the first year. I didn't all of a sudden make it to where I was because I woke up and said, I'm going to lift this 300 pounds, blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to take it, just like you went from kindergarten to first grade to second grade to third grade. You didn't go from kindergarten to 12th grade. It's all in steps. So there was a moment where I was only running 100 meters and I was winded and I was in pain and I struggled. And then I went to running a half marathon this past April. But it took me time. Like, it took me years. It didn't take me 10 days. So we have to keep it in perspective. Yeah, you're struggling now, but keep up the work. And one day you're going to look back and be like, wow, look at how far I've come, because it really, literally will happen.
And if someone's looking at starting strongman, would you offer any advice for them?
Don't do it.
As Casey nods.
Yeah, no, that's a good plan. Don't do that.
I'm just joking. It's like the people that are like, smoking cigarettes and be like, don't smoke, kid, it's bad for you. Like, I really do love strongman. The cool thing about strongman, and if people wanted to get into strongman, I think it's great, is it is the most entertaining and surprising sport that I have ever been into, because you're watching things that are the weirdest thing ever. And especially like Chris Vaccio would come up with like some of the weirdest things for people to like, yeah, I found this fire hydrant and I think that would be a good idea to press this. And you go, really? But I mean, like, it was so fun to watch everybody do it. And people were excited to say, look what I did. I pressed a fire hydrant. And contrary to belief, like, those things are freaking heavy. So they're very, very heavy. But, those are the fun things. Like, everybody still will remember, me pulling a fire engine. And they're like, that was the best. I can't believe you pulled a fire engine. And no one else can really say that unless they're in strongman. Yeah. And those are the fun stories that you get to tell at, like, dinner parties and stuff like that. It's totally part of my conversation. I talk about strongman all the time.
Right. Well, thank you again for taking the time to be on the show, and thank you for everyone that's been tuning into the episode. Make sure to follow the show on Twitch, where you can tune into the show and join the conversations live. Just head over to twitch.tv/rulesofthearena. You can find this episode and all others on blindninjastudios.com/ROA, also available for download and streaming on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, and CastBox. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, where you can watch this live recording of previous episodes. And don't forget to check out my new show called No Story Left Behind, a podcast featuring military veterans talking about their careers while serving in the armed forces. If you'd like to support the shows, there are a couple ways you can help out. Please make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also support the show directly by heading to patreon.com/Rules of the Arena podcast. I have a couple ways that you can help out there. And if you'd like to get a hold of me directly, please shoot me an email to roapodcast@info@gmail.com. Thanks again, folks, and we will catch you next time.